The flashing red and blue lights painted the parking lot in violent pulses. Rain hissed against asphalt, pooling under the street lamp that caught every drop like glass. Dr. Maya Ellis stood beside her black sedan, soaked but still, her hands raised halfway, clutching her purse strap. The officer's flashlight burned through the dark, steady on her face. "License and registration," he said, voice clipped. She handed them over, calm, deliberate. The laminated badge on her hospital coat glinted. Chief Medical Administrator, St. Raphael Hospital. He didn't look at it. "You match the description," he said. "Suspicious vehicle, possible theft." Her breath hitched. "This is my car," he smirked. "Yeah, that's what they all say." The other officers arrived, laughing under their raincoats. One of them leaned in, whispering, "Man, she's got a doctor badge." "Fake ID," the first officer muttered, cuffing her wrist before she could protest. The cold metal bit into her skin. The rain turned to needles. Through the blur of humiliation and flashing lights, Maya caught the eyes of a teenage boy filming with his phone. Silent, trembling. Then the officer leaned close, breath hot against her ear. "You people always think you're above the law." The words cut deeper than the cuffs. In the distance, a siren wailed. Another unit. Summoned for backup. She didn't know yet that one of those sirens carried the man who would soon fire him, or that within 24 hours, she'd be sitting across from this same officer, dry, composed, unshackled, as his new commanding superior. The last image before the scene fades, the officer's smirk faltering, the handcuff key trembling in his palm. Rain turned the city's pulse to static. Tires hissed along soaked asphalt as Dr. Maya Ellis stepped out of St. Raphael Hospital, her stethoscope still around her neck. Midnight shifts drained her, but tonight's exhaustion carried something heavier. The residue of too many lost patients, too many thankless nights. The parking lot was nearly empty. Security lights flickered weakly over the rows of cars. She pressed her key fob. Her sedan chirped twice. She reached for the handle when red and blue lights exploded across the lot. A police cruiser slid in front of her car, tires screeching. Another blocked the exit. She froze. A tall white officer stepped out, hand already on his holster. "Step away from the vehicle, ma'am." Maya blinked. "Excuse me?" "Step away from the car." His flashlight beam struck her face like a weapon. She raised a hand to shield her eyes. "This is my car. I work here." "You can check license and registration," he snapped. Her throat tightened. "It's in my purse." Slowly, he warned. She moved deliberately, unzipping her purse with trembling fingers. Every motion felt like glass underfoot. Fragile, one wrong move and she'd shatter. She handed him her ID and registration. He scanned them quickly, unimpressed. "You match a report," he said. "Suspicious vehicle. Possible theft. I just finished my shift. I'm a doctor." "Uh-huh." His eyes dropped to her hospital coat. Cute costume. Her chest went cold. "That's not—" "Ma'am, don't get defensive. If you're innocent, you've got nothing to worry about." Another officer approached, rain dripping from his cap. "Everything good, Monroe?" Monroe shrugged. "Maybe. We'll see." They exchanged a glance she recognized, the silent language of authority, dismissive and sure. Maya's voice trembled. "You can call hospital security. They know me." "Not how this works," Monroe said. He turned her ID toward the rain, then shoved it back. "Fake ID's not gonna hold up." Her hands tightened into fists. "That's my name, my car. My job." He moved closer. "Turn around. Hands on the hood." "What?" "You heard me." Her pulse hammered. She scanned the lot, empty except for the distant glow of the ER sign. No one coming. The rain drowned her protest. Cold metal clamped her wrists. Her purse hit the ground, scattering pens, keys, ID badge. The badge spun once before landing face up in a puddle. Chief Medical Administrator, St. Raphael Hospital. A teenager across the street lifted his phone. The red record light blinked. Monroe noticed. "Put that down," he barked. But the boy didn't. Maya's voice broke. "You're making a mistake." He leaned close, breath sour with coffee. "You people always think you're above the law." Her world constricted to the hiss of rain, the pressure of cuffs, the shame burning under her skin. She didn't speak again. She knew nothing she said mattered now. Minutes later, a radio crackled. "Dispatch confirmed no stolen vehicle." Monroe's smirk faltered. Huh, he muttered, unlocking the cuffs. Looks like a mix-up. She didn't move. The cuffs fell away. Her wrists were raw. He cleared his throat. You're free to go. She looked at him once, not in fear, but in something colder. A silent record of everything he'd said, everything he'd taken. When she finally spoke, her voice was a whisper that cut through the rain. You'll remember this night before I do. The cruiser's lights faded, leaving her alone in the storm, drenched, shaking, and already aware that the world was watching. The video hit social media before dawn, a shaky clip, 42 seconds long. Rain slashing across the frame, a woman in a white coat, hands cuffed, face turned away, a man's voice, and firm, cold, unmistakable. You people always think you're above the law. By morning, the city had seen it. By noon, it had 1 million views. Maya Ellis sat in her office with the blinds half drawn, staring at the glow of her phone screen. Notifications poured in. Colleagues, journalists, old classmates she hadn't spoken to in years. Words like unacceptable, disgrace, racial profiling, justice for Dr. Ellis flooded every thread. Her throat ached from silence. Across from her, Dr. Kwan, head of surgery, leaned forward carefully. Maya, the board's aware. They're drafting a statement. What kind of statement? Her voice sounded detached, mechanical. Something measured. Professional, we can't risk politicizing. She cut him off. A woman in a lab coat was handcuffed in her own hospital's parking lot. That's not politics, David, that's fact. He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the frosted window where silhouettes passed. Administrators, nurses, patients. Facts don't protect institutions, he murmured. Maya stared at him, then at the faint bruise circling her wrist. Neither does silence, the door clicked. Her assistant Lydia entered holding a folder. Dr. Ellis, media's waiting outside the main entrance. Reporters, cameras, everything. Tell security to redirect them, Maya said. They're already inside. Maya stood. Her legs trembled, but her expression didn't. Downstairs, the lobby buzzed. Murmurs, camera flashes, whispers echoing under marble ceilings. Hospital staff formed a quiet barrier around her as she walked through. One nurse reached out, squeezed her arm gently. We saw the video. We're with you. The words should have helped. They didn't. She reached the exit doors, glass reflecting her pale, sleepless face. A reporter thrust a mic forward. Dr. Ellis, can you confirm the officer's name? No comment. Will you press charges? She kept walking. Another voice shouted. Do you feel the police targeted you because you're black? She paused mid-step, not to answer, but because the question itself was a wound. She turned, eyes steady. You saw the video. You decide. Then she walked out. Outside, the air was thick with humidity and static. The city holding its breath. Across town, Officer Trent Monroe sat in a diner, coffee going cold. His phone vibrated endlessly. His face was plastered on every news feed, every comment thread. He scrolled, jaw tightening. Typical. He needs to be fired. This is America in one clip, he muttered under his breath. Out of context. They never show the whole story. The officer beside him, a young recruit, glanced up nervously. You gonna talk to internal affairs? It's protocol, Trent said flatly. They'll clear me. They always do. The recruit nodded but didn't look convinced. Don't buy into this social media garbage, Trent added, his tone sharper now. People love outrage. It'll fade. But when he looked at his reflection in the diner window, even he didn't believe it. That evening, Maya sat at her kitchen table, untouched tea cooling beside her. The apartment was quiet, save for the low hum of the city outside. She opened her laptop and reread the hospital's draft statement. St. Raphael Hospital is aware of an unfortunate incident involving one of our staff members and local law enforcement. We are cooperating with the authorities to ensure mutual understanding and accountability. Mutual understanding. Her stomach turned. She closed the laptop. Her phone buzzed again. Lydia. Dr. Ellis, are you watching Channel 7? No. They're replaying the footage with commentary. And, Lydia hesitated. They've identified the officer. Maya exhaled. Trent Monroe. Yes, and the police union's already issued a statement defending him. Of course they had. Maya stood, crossing to the window. Below, the city lights blurred in streaks of gold and blue. Her reflection stared back, tired, furious, but still intact. Her voice, quiet but resolute, filled the empty room. Then they'll see what accountability looks like. The next morning, the hospital buzzed with controlled chaos. Security briefings, emails from city offices, whispers in hallways. The video had reached the mayor's desk. Maya walked through the corridors like someone carrying a live wire, calm on the surface. Voltage beneath, an orderly passed, murmuring, "Stay strong, Dr. Ellis." She nodded once. Inside the admin conference room, a group of executives waited. The chief operating officer, Mr. Daniels, spoke first. "We've been contacted by the police department's public relations office. They're requesting a joint meeting, damage control." "Damage control?" Maya repeated. "Yes. They want to ensure cooperation continues smoothly." Her eyes hardened. "Cooperation didn't stop them from cuffing me." "Maya," Daniels said carefully, "the hospital depends on their partnership for emergency response. We can't escalate this." She leaned forward. "You think I escalated it?" The silence was heavy, suffocating. Finally, she straightened her coat. "Set the meeting. I'll be there." When she left the room, Daniels exhaled slowly. One of the executives whispered, "She's not letting this go." He replied, "She shouldn't." Outside, the world was still burning over a 42-second clip. But inside Maya's chest, something deeper was forming. Not just outrage, but precision. The kind of clarity that came right before a reckoning. She wasn't done. Not even close. The precinct smelled of bleach and coffee, a mix that never quite masked the stale air of authority. Dr. Maya Ellis sat across a narrow table in a small interview room. Her posture straight, her hands folded neatly on her lap. Her wrists still bore faint marks from the cuffs. Opposite her sat Sergeant Willis, Internal Affairs. Middle-aged, polite in tone, but mechanical in expression. He flipped open a folder labeled Ellis Maya. Incident Report Dodger 2117B. "Dr. Ellis," he began, "thank you for coming. I understand this was unpleasant." Maya's gaze didn't shift. "I was detained, handcuffed, and humiliated in front of my workplace." "You can use the correct word." Willis's pen paused. "All right. You were wrongfully detained. Officer Monroe's report suggests his report is a lie." He adjusted his glasses. "Let's allow the process to work. Internal Affairs will review all available footage, witness statements, and—" "You mean the viral video?" she said evenly. "Because that's the only reason I'm sitting here." Willis looked up, expression unreadable. "The public reaction isn't part of our determination." "No," Maya said, "but it's the only reason you're pretending it is one." A quiet knock interrupted. The door opened. In walked Officer Trent Monroe, the man himself, trailed by a police union representative. Maya's breath hitched, but she didn't move. Trent's smirk was gone. His face had the defensive stillness of someone coached to look neutral. He didn't look at her directly. Willis cleared his throat. "Dr. Ellis, Officer Monroe has the right to hear your statement. For procedural fairness." "Fairness," she murmured. Willis gestured. "Please describe the events of that night in your own words." Maya began, her voice calm but precise. Every detail laid out like a surgical procedure. The rain, the flashlight, the cuffs. The words, "You people always think you're above the law." Trent shifted. His rep interjected, "We'll need to confirm whether that statement was actually made." Maya's eyes locked on him. "It was recorded." The rep smiled thinly. "Social media videos are often edited for context." "Context?" she repeated. "Do you want me to provide context for being handcuffed in my own hospital parking lot?" The silence afterward was thick. Even Willis looked uncomfortable. The rep leaned back. Officer Monroe acted on a description provided by dispatch. He followed standard procedure. Maya's tone didn't waver. "Standard procedure doesn't include racial slurs." Trent finally spoke, his voice low. "You misheard me." Her laugh was short, humorless. "No one misheard you. Half the city heard you." Willis scribbled something quickly, eyes on the paper. "Let's stay professional, please." Maya leaned forward slightly. "Professionalism isn't silence, Sergeant. It's accountability." Willis looked up, almost startled by the precision in her tone. The union rep sighed. "Dr. Ellis, you seem emotional about this." Her reply was surgical. "Would you prefer I sound detached while describing an officer's abuse of power?" The rep fell silent. Trent's jaw tightened. He stared at the table. Willis closed the file. We'll investigate and inform you of our decision within 30 days. 30 days, Maya repeated. And in that time he stays on duty? That's standard, she stood. So is injustice, apparently. As she turned to leave, Trent muttered under his breath, something low, indistinct. But she caught it. Overreacting. She stopped at the door, turned slightly, her expression still calm. You called me a criminal, Trent, and you'll spend the rest of your career proving you're not. She walked out before he could reply. Outside, the precinct lobby was crowded. Officers, civilians, clerks. Her heels clicked sharply against the tile, the sound steady, deliberate. A young black officer near the entrance met her gaze for half a second, then looked away. That silence told her everything about how deep this problem went. As she stepped out into the sunlight, Lydia was waiting by the car. How'd it go? Maya exhaled. Predictably, they didn't take it seriously. They took notes. They'll file a report, and nothing will happen unless I make it happen. Lydia hesitated. You sure you want to keep pushing this? It's going to get ugly. Maya opened the car door, pausing. It's already ugly. That evening, she returned home to find an envelope under her door. Official letterhead, St. Raphael Hospital Administration. Inside was a memo notifying her of a temporary leave to protect the institution's reputation pending the outcome of public controversy. She stared at the words, reading them twice, then 3 times. Protect the institution. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from recognition. The system was closing ranks. She placed the letter on her kitchen counter beside her untouched dinner and stared out the window at the skyline. The same city that filmed her humiliation was now waiting to see what she'd do next. In that silence, a resolve formed, cold, deliberate, unflinching. She whispered to the empty room. They think I'll stop because I'm tired. They have no idea. Across town, Trent sat in his squad car outside a dark alley, the radio humming softly. His phone buzzed. Sergeant Willis, he answered. Monroe, Willis said. Keep your head down. There's pressure from upstairs. City wants this to go away quietly. Trent smirked faintly. It will. But his hands gripping the wheel told a different story. Knuckles white, pulse quick. For the first time in his career, he felt something resembling fear. The conference room smelled faintly of polished wood and tension. The hospital board members sat in a semicircle, faces framed by the glow of tablet screens and neutral smiles. Maya Ellis stood at the far end of the table, her posture immaculate, hands clasped. She had been summoned without context. Urgent administrative matter. Mr. Daniels, the COO, adjusted his tie. Dr. Ellis, we appreciate you coming in on short notice. She nodded once. What's this about? He cleared his throat. After careful review, the board has decided to confirm your appointment as Chief Administrator of St. Raphael Hospital, effective immediately. For a moment, her pulse stopped. He continued. Your leadership has been exemplary, and despite recent publicity, we believe you're uniquely equipped to represent this institution's integrity. A quiet beat followed. Recent publicity. The euphemism hung in the air like smoke. Another board member, Dr. Patel, smiled thinly. You've become a symbol of resilience, Maya. The city admires your composure. We'd like to channel that strength constructively. Constructively, Maya repeated, yes, as part of your new role. You'll be coordinating our joint response initiative with local law enforcement. The irony hit with surgical precision. She stared at them, silent, processing. The same precinct that handcuffed her would now sit across the table from her, under her oversight, her approval, her standards. Daniels continued, oblivious or pretending to be. We've already scheduled your first coordination meeting for next week. Representatives from the city police department will attend. Maya's voice was steady. Which representatives? He glanced at his notes. The Community Relations Division, a liaison officer, a Captain Hayes, and a Sergeant Monroe. The name hit like static through the room. She didn't flinch. Noted, Patel leaned forward. We understand this may be uncomfortable, but optics matter. Your involvement demonstrates healing, progress. Healing, Maya said softly. Is that what we're calling accountability now? Daniels interjected quickly. Dr. Ellis, this is a tremendous opportunity, both for the hospital and for you personally. You'll be setting policy at the intersection of healthcare and policing. Her tone cooled. You mean I'll be managing the fallout of their mistakes? Maya, Patel said gently. Sometimes leadership means absorbing the damage so others can move forward. She met his gaze, unblinking. And sometimes it means stopping the damage before it spreads. The room went silent. Finally, Daniel smiled in that managerial way, polished, empty. We know you'll handle this with grace. Grace. That word again. The polite demand for silence. Maya exhaled slowly, every part of her body radiating control. Understood. When do I begin? Monday morning. She nodded, gathered her papers, and left the room before anyone could add another hollow word. The elevator ride down was long, quiet. Her reflection in the mirrored walls looked composed, but her pulse drummed beneath the surface. Not anger anymore, but purpose. Outside, the city was bathed in late afternoon light. News vans still parked across the street waiting for another quote, another reaction. She ignored them. At her car, Lydia caught up, slightly out of breath. Is it true? You're taking the top position? Yes. And the police liaison meeting? Maya unlocked the car. Also true. Lydia hesitated. That's bold. You sure it's not a trap? Maya's eyes flicked toward the horizon, the skyline where blue lights sometimes danced for the wrong reasons. If it is, I'll set it myself. Lydia exhaled, half a laugh, half disbelief. You're really doing this, huh? I don't have a choice anymore. She got in, started the engine, and drove off. Across the city, in the police precinct, Trent Monroe was in Captain Hayes's office, standing stiffly. Hayes was a man carved from protocol. Silver hair, steady tone. You're attending the interdepartmental meeting next week, he said. Trent frowned. With who? Hospital administration. PR partnership initiative. You'll be representing our division, he smirked. So we're playing nice now? City order, Hayes replied. Clean image, community cooperation. Don't make it harder. Trent rolled his shoulders. Who's on the hospital side? Dr. Maya Ellis. The smirk froze. His throat went dry. You're kidding. Hayes's voice was flat. You caused this mess, Monroe. You'll face her professionally or you'll be facing termination. Trent clenched his jaw. Yes, sir. When he stepped out into the hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzed like distant thunder. For the first time since the night of the arrest, he felt the tables shifting, the ground beneath him no longer certain. Back in her office, Maya opened her laptop and reviewed the meeting agenda. The name Sergeant Trent Monroe stared back at her from the attendance list. She stared at it for a long time, fingers motionless on the keyboard. Then she smiled, not with satisfaction, but with the quiet understanding that justice sometimes arrives disguised as irony. The morning of the interagency meeting dawned clear, too bright, too calm for what it was about to hold. St. Raphael's executive boardroom gleamed under recessed lighting. A fresh banner on the wall read, Community Partnership Initiative, Building Trust Through Cooperation. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew the story. Dr. Maya Ellis arrived 10 minutes early. She wore a charcoal gray suit, precise lines, measured tone. No lab coat this time. No vulnerability, only command. She arranged her notes, rehearsing nothing. Her mind was still, her breathing steady. She'd spent weeks replaying that night in her head. Every detail burned in permanent memory. Today she would not flinch. At 9:02 the door opened. Captain Hayes entered first, offering a neutral nod. Behind him followed two officers, and finally, Sergeant Trent Monroe. Maya looked up for a second. The room held its breath. Trent hesitated in the doorway, posture rigid, eyes flicking toward her before quickly looking away. The air thickened, not with anger, but with awareness. Everyone in the room knew Dr. Ellis, Hayes began, voice even. Appreciate you hosting this. Of course, she replied smoothly. Please have a seat. They sat. Papers shuffled, pens clicked, the sound of bureaucracy trying to disguise tension. Maya began, her tone controlled but sharp. This meeting exists to formalize communication between hospital administration and law enforcement, to ensure patients and citizens are treated with dignity, regardless of background. She looked directly at Trent. That includes the parking lot. Hayes cleared his throat, pretending not to notice the sting. Understood. Trent forced a nod. We take that seriously. Good, she said. Then we'll start with reviewing the incident protocol that led to my detention. The word landed like a gavel. Trent's pen froze over his notepad. With respect, Dr. Ellis, that situation was, she cut him cleanly, avoidable. That's the word you're looking for. The younger officer beside him looked down, expression tight. Maya clicked her laptop, projecting a slide. The viral footage frozen on screen. Rain cuffs humiliation, the same frame that had burned through the city's collective conscience. Hayes shifted uncomfortably. Is this necessary? Yes, she said simply. We can't talk about trust without looking at truth. The video played for 10 seconds, just long enough to reach the line. You people always think you're above the law. Trent's jaw locked. Maya stopped the clip. This was not a moment of misunderstanding. It was a reflection of culture. And culture, gentlemen, is policy in disguise. Silence. Hayes exhaled. Dr. Ellis, the department regrets what happened. We're taking steps, she interrupted again. Steps don't erase patterns. Trent finally spoke, his tone strained. I've apologized publicly. No, she corrected. You released a statement. That's not an apology. He met her gaze then, and for the first time the arrogance faltered. What do you want from me? Her eyes were steady. Competence, respect, accountability, and if that's too much, resignation. Hayes's voice hardened. Let's remain civil. I am being civil, she said softly. I'm the only one who was from the beginning. For a moment, no one moved. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the city's sirens faint beyond the windows. Then Maya turned the page on her notes. Moving forward, all joint operations between St. Raphael and the police will require direct administrative approval. I'll be signing off personally, Hayes frowned. That's unusual. Unusual, she said, is being handcuffed for owning my car. We can handle unusual. The younger officer shifted in his seat, whispering something to Hayes. The captain nodded reluctantly. Understood. Trent stared down at his folder. His knuckles were white around the pen. Maya closed her laptop, her tone soft but final. Gentlemen, this is not vengeance. It's correction. The difference is who learns from it. Hayes stood. Thank you for your time, Dr. Ellis. She nodded. We'll reconvene next month to review compliance metrics. Sergeant Monroe, I expect your division's full cooperation. He hesitated before answering. Yes, ma'am. The title stung, not because of what it meant, but because of what it reminded him. She was his superior now. As the officers filed out, Trent lingered, pretending to gather papers. When the others left, he finally spoke. I didn't mean for things to go that far, he said, voice low. Maya didn't look up. You meant every word you said. He took a step closer. You think this changes anything? You think you're fixing the system? She met his gaze. I'm not fixing it. I'm exposing it. He stared for a moment, face unreadable. Then he turned and walked out. Maya exhaled slowly once the door shut. Her reflection in the black screen of her laptop stared back, poised, unyielding, tired. Lydia entered quietly. How did it go? Maya smiled faintly. He called me ma'am. Lydia's eyebrows lifted. That's progress? It's irony, Maya said. Sometimes that's all justice gives you at first. She looked toward the window, the skyline glimmering under noonlight. The city kept moving, unaware that something had shifted, however slightly. The same system that once silenced her had just been forced to listen. The following week, Sergeant Trent Monroe's name started echoing in places he couldn't control. In the precinct cafeteria, whispers chased him like shadows. You hear about Monroe? The woman he cuffed. She's his new boss now. Man, that's poetic karma. He pretended not to hear, eyes fixed on his black coffee. It tasted like burnt regret. The department was changing, not by choice, but by exposure. The viral clip had forced internal reviews. The mayor's office had demanded quarterly reports, and Captain Hayes had become a ghost of stress. For the first time in his career, Trent wasn't sure where his authority ended or if he still had any. He was reviewing an incident report when Hayes knocked on his door. Got a minute? Trent nodded, though he already knew what this was. Hayes closed the door and leaned against the frame. You're off the community liaison project. Trent blinked. Excuse me? Dr. Ellis requested new leads. She said she wants people who can rebuild trust, her words. Trent's voice dropped cold and flat. She's trying to bury me, Hayes sighed. No, she's trying to make this department survive public perception. And frankly, I don't blame her. You're siding with her? I'm siding with the department, Monroe. You should too. Trent clenched his jaw. I made a mistake, but that doesn't make me a racist? Hayes finished the sentence softly. Doesn't matter what you think, it's what they see. You became the face of the problem. Trent's hands balled into fists on the table. So what, I just sit here and take it? Hayes gave a tired shrug. Sometimes that's the price of being wrong. When he left, Trent sat motionless, the hum of the fluorescent lights pressing against his temples. He thought about that night again, her calm, her silence. The way she looked at him like she saw through every defense. For the first time, he wondered if she had been afraid. Across town, Maya stared at the latest round of hate mail. The messages came in waves, some subtle, others vile. One envelope carried no return address, only a single sheet inside. Stay in your lane. Lydia hovered at her doorway. Another one? Maya nodded, tucking it into the growing folder labeled Incidents. Do you ever think about leaving? Lydia asked softly. Every day, Maya said. And then I remember leaving doesn't fix anything. She sat back, exhaustion heavy in her shoulders. For all her control in the boardroom, the personal cost was starting to show. Sleepless nights, tight chest, the same dream replaying, the rain, the cuffs, the humiliation. But today, her fight wasn't against one man. It was against the normalization of what he represented. A notification pinged on her laptop. Local news request. Exclusive interview with Dr. Maya Ellis. She hesitated. Lydia noticed. You're not going to do it, right? I don't know yet. Media will twist it. They always do. Maya's eyes hardened. Maybe. But silence lets them write the story without me. The next morning, Trent saw the broadcast on the precinct TV. Maya sat under studio lights. Composure flawless. I don't want revenge, she said. I want recognition that what happened to me happens every day to people without titles, without witnesses, without the chance to fight back. The system doesn't need anger. It needs accountability. The room went quiet. Even the younger officers watched. One muttered, "She's good." Trent turned away, but the words clung to him, without titles. Later that afternoon, a group of officers stood outside smoking, their tone low and sharp. She's making the department look bad. Gonna get someone else suspended next. I'd watch your back if I were Monroe. He walked past them, pretending not to hear, but deep down the fracture had begun, not just between him and her, but within himself. For the first time in his career, he wasn't sure who he was protecting anymore, the law, or the illusion of it. That night, as he sat alone in his car, the radio static filled the silence. A call came through. Domestic disturbance 5 blocks away. He hesitated before responding. For once, he questioned if he was the right person to show up. Outside, the rain began to fall, soft, rhythmic, echoing memory. He looked at his reflection in the windshield, whispering under his breath. Maybe she's right. The words startled him, and small, unplanned, too honest. But once spoken, they didn't leave. 2 weeks later, the city's annual public trust forum gathered in the downtown Civic Hall, a polished room lined with flags and cameras. It was meant to symbolize unity between law enforcement and the community. For Maya Ellis, it was a battlefield disguised as progress. She adjusted her blazer, glanced at the agenda in her hand, and saw the name that twisted her stomach. Sergeant Trent Monroe, panel participant. Her assistant whispered, "You want to skip it? You don't have to sit through him." Maya shook her head. "No, I want him to hear me." The hall buzzed with press and murmurs. Community leaders, activists, officers in uniform, all pretending calm while resentment simmered beneath. When the moderator called the panel to order, Trent took his seat 2 chairs away from her. His uniform was pressed, but his face looked older, drawn, sleepless. Today's discussion, the moderator began, centers on rebuilding trust between citizens and law enforcement. Maya listened silent. As a city official delivered the usual rhetoric, healing, mutual understanding, steps forward. Words she'd heard too often, emptied by repetition. Then it was her turn. She leaned forward, voice steady, eyes fixed on the crowd, but her words cut toward him. "Trust isn't rebuilt by statements," she said. "It's rebuilt by accountability, by the acknowledgement that what has been normalized was never right." Trent's jaw flexed, his hand gripping his knee. If an officer's first instinct is control instead of compassion, then the badge is a shield for fear, not justice. A murmur rippled through the room. The moderator glanced nervously at Trent. "Sergeant Monroe, your response?" He hesitated. For once, the confident tone wasn't there. He started, then stopped. "I've made mistakes. Everyone in this department has. But I still believe most of us are trying to do the right thing." "Trying," Maya repeated quietly. "But trying isn't enough when people die trying to survive a misunderstanding." Silence. Then applause. Hesitant at first, then building. Trent's chest tightened. He felt the cameras on him, the invisible weight of public judgment pressing down. He muttered, barely audible, "You don't know what it's like out there," but she did hear him. "I know exactly what it's like to be out there," she replied. "I lived it, and I'm still living with it." The moderator called for a short break. The panelists stood, tension hanging thick in the air. Outside in the corridor, Trent followed her. "Dr. Ellis," she turned, arms folded. "Yes, Sergeant?" "I didn't come here to be humiliated." She arched a brow. Then perhaps humility wasn't the worst lesson to learn. His tone darkened. "You think this is justice? Making me the example?" "I didn't make you anything," she said evenly. "You made choices. The camera just caught them." Trent's face flushed. "You don't understand how it feels to have your entire life defined by one mistake." Her voice softened, but her eyes didn't. "One mistake for you. A lifetime for others." He looked away, swallowing hard. For the first time, the guilt didn't feel defensive. It felt real. Later that night, back in her office, Maya sat staring at the city skyline through the glass. Her reflection looked tired, faintly trembling. The confrontation had drained her, not because of him, but because of how much still remained unchanged. Lydia entered quietly. "You did what you had to, did I?" Maya asked. "Sometimes I wonder if all I'm doing is rearranging the damage." "People are listening," Lydia said. "That's more than before." Maya nodded slowly, but her eyes stayed distant. "Listening isn't the same as changing." Her phone buzzed. A notification email from Sergeant Monroe. Subject, "For what it's worth." She opened it. A single line: "I can't undo what I did, but I can start by not pretending it didn't happen." No apology, just acknowledgement. Yet somehow it hit harder than she expected. She closed the laptop and exhaled, part exhaustion, part relief. Meanwhile, in the locker room, Trent sat alone after everyone left. The echo of her words lingered louder than the applause. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his badge. The metal gleamed under the harsh fluorescent light, a symbol of everything he once thought made him untouchable. He stared at it for a long time, then set it on the bench beside him. For the first time, he didn't feel pride. He felt the weight of every silence, every time he'd looked away. When he finally left, the badge was still there, catching the last flicker of light before the room went dark. Morning news hit like a storm. Every channel, every social feed, the same headline in bold. "Internal documents leak. Department ignored prior complaints against Sergeant Monroe." Maya froze when she saw it. The email chain flashed across the screen. Redacted names, timestamps, the unmistakable trail of negligence. Someone inside had leaked it. The public outrage reignited instantly. Her office door burst open. Lydia stood there, pale. "You didn't know," Maya said, cutting her off. "Not me," but she knew what this meant. Every reform plan, every cautious partnership, now balanced on the edge of scandal. The reporter's voice on TV sharpened the blade. Among the leaked records are at least 3 civilian complaints alleging racial bias and excessive force, each dismissed by internal affairs without disciplinary action. Maya muted the sound, staring at her own reflection in the dark screen. "It was bound to come out," she whispered. Across town, the precinct was chaos. Phones rang nonstop. Hayes was shouting orders while reporters gathered outside like vultures. Trent walked in, face unreadable. The moment he entered, heads turned. The air thickened. "Office, now," Hayes barked. When the door closed, Hayes slammed a folder on the desk. "You see this mess? I had nothing to do with the leak." "I don't care about the leak. I care about the content," Hayes jabbed a finger at him. 3 ignored complaints, Monroe." 3. Trent's throat went dry. "Those were years ago. They cleared me." "Cleared you because we didn't want another PR nightmare," Hayes shot back. "Now we've got 4. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "They're calling for suspension. You're done for now. Pending review. Trent stood motionless. Captain, leave your badge, Hayes said, tone final. It felt like a hammer to the chest. Trent unclipped the badge slowly, setting it on the desk. Hayes didn't look up. You had chances to change. You didn't take them. Trent nodded once, turned, and walked out, the hallway silent as judgment. That afternoon, Maya was summoned to the mayor's office. The room was lined with advisors, their expressions carved from caution. The mayor spoke first. We're aware of the leak. Public trust is collapsing. We need a statement from you today. Maya's voice remained steady. Do you want truth or damage control? Truth without liability, one advisor interjected. She gave a faint, humorless smile. That's not truth, then. The mayor rubbed his temples. Dr. Ellis, please understand, the department is under siege. If we don't contain this, we lose the next election cycle and your reforms die with it. Maya stood. Maybe they should burn if survival means silence. She left before they could reply. By evening, the story had evolved again. A new detail. Anonymous sources claimed a senior officer had provided the leak. Social media speculated names, faces, motives. And quietly inside his dark apartment, Trent stared at his laptop, watching it all unfold. He hadn't leaked it, but he knew who did. Detective Alvarez. She'd mentioned frustration, hinted at exposing the rot. He never believed she'd go through with it. He scrolled through the comments. Finally, accountability. Too little, too late. Suspend them all. His name trended by midnight. Every post tagged with anger, outrage, disgust. He closed the screen, staring into the dark. His phone buzzed, a number he didn't recognize. He hesitated, then answered. Sergeant Monroe? Her voice. Calm, unwavering, Dr. Ellis, he said. I'm not a sergeant anymore. I know, she replied. I didn't leak those files. Didn't think you did. Silence lingered. This isn't justice, you know, he said finally. It's just blood in the water. Maybe, she said softly. But at least now people can see it. And what happens when they stop looking? Then we start again, she said. That's what you never understood. This fight doesn't end with headlines. Trent exhaled slowly. Maybe I'm starting to, a pause. Not peace, but something close to acknowledgement. Good night, Dr. Ellis. Good night, Mr. Monroe. The call ended. He sat in silence, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. He thought about her, not as the woman he humiliated, but as the mirror that finally forced him to see himself outside. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, and no longer his to answer. The next morning, Maya arrived at her office to find a letter on her desk. No sender, just her name handwritten in a firm, familiar scrawl. She unfolded it. You were right. About everything. Maybe losing the badge is the only way I'll ever deserve to wear one. I'll testify at the hearing, the truth this time. Trent Monroe, she stood there a long time, letter trembling slightly in her hands. The fight wasn't over. But for the first time it felt like something or someone had cracked open. The hearing chamber smelled of paper and politics. Cold, airless, heavy with the ghosts of excuses once called justice. Rows of reporters filled the back, pens ready to weaponize every sentence. At the front, under the seal of the city, sat the disciplinary board. Their faces were neutral masks, trained to look like fairness. Trent Monroe entered quietly. No badge, no uniform, just a dark suit that fit like apology. His steps echoed, each one a reminder that the man who once commanded a room now stood to defend himself. Maya Ellis was already there, sitting 2 rows behind the board. Her presence wasn't required, but she came anyway. When Trent saw her, he hesitated, then gave a small nod. She returned nothing but silence. The chair of the board cleared his throat. Sergeant, correction, Mr. Monroe. You've been called to address the internal affairs report concerning 3 prior complaints and the incident involving Dr. Ellis. Do you wish to make a statement? Trent stood. The room waited. Cameras clicked like distant gunfire. He looked down at the table, then straight at Maya. For years, he began, voice low, steady. I told myself I was one of the good ones, that every decision I made came from procedure, not prejudice. But I was wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I hid behind policy to avoid facing what I'd become, a man so used to control, He mistook it for justice. The truth is, I saw color before I saw people. And when I handcuffed Dr. Ellis, I didn't just arrest a woman. I exposed everything that's broken in me, and in this system. He paused. A reporter's flash caught the edge of moisture in his eyes. If you're looking for an excuse, I don't have one. But if you're looking for change, it starts by naming what we've denied. The room was dead silent. Even the board members stopped writing. Then the chair said, "Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Dr. Ellis, would you like to speak?" Maya rose slowly. She hadn't planned to, but something in his words demanded response. "I came here today," she said, "not to destroy a man's life, but to measure if this institution still remembers what accountability means." Her gaze swept the panel. He's not the first. He won't be the last. But if the department can hear what he just said and still do nothing, then every apology is theater. Someone in the audience began to clap, soft at first, then louder, building into a pulse that filled the chamber. The board didn't stop it. They couldn't. The chair leaned forward, voice tight. "This board recommends immediate termination and referral to the Civil Review Commission. Additionally, all prior complaints will be reopened under external oversight." Trent nodded once. No surprise, no anger. Just a quiet surrender. When it ended, reporters swarmed, microphones flashing. He slipped past them without a word. Outside, the air was heavy, humid, late summer pressing down like memory. Maya followed a few steps behind. "Monroe," she called out. He turned. "You could have fought it," she said. "Most people would have." He gave a faint smile. Tired, real. "Maybe that's the problem. Too many fights. Not enough facing." They stood in silence for a moment, the city buzzing around them. "What happens now?" he asked. "You testify," she said. "And then you rebuild, not for them, for yourself." He nodded. "And you?" She looked up at the courthouse steps. "I keep doing the same thing I've always done when walking uphill." He chuckled softly. "You're good at that." Her expression didn't change. "You learn when the ground's never level." Trent extended a hand. She looked at it, hesitated, and then shook it. No forgiveness. No friendship. Just acknowledgement. The fragile bridge between guilt and growth. That night, Maya sat in her apartment, watching the city lights blink like quiet witnesses. The news played softly in the background. In a historic movie, the city's Civil Review Commission has voted to overhaul internal policing procedures following public hearings involving former officer Trent Monroe. She muted the TV. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like absence. It felt like space. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, "Thank you. Not for mercy, and for truth." She didn't reply. But she saved the message. Outside, the night was still. The world hadn't changed overnight. It rarely does. But something small had shifted. The kind of shift history never notices, but people feel. 6 months later, the city felt quieter. Not peaceful, just exhausted. The protests had thinned. The headlines had moved on. But for those who'd lived the story, nothing had returned to normal. Maya Ellis walked through the newly renovated Public Accountability Office. Glass walls, open desks, and a new plaque near the entrance. Dedicated to those who demanded truth when silence was safer. She paused in front of it, tracing the engraved words with her finger. Her own idea, though the credit would never say so. That was fine. Her work had never been about recognition. Lydia appeared beside her, holding a stack of reports. "Press wants a comment for the 6-month update." Maya shook her head. "No comment. Let the work speak." "People think you disappeared," Lydia said. "Good. Let them think that. It's easier to build in silence." They walked through the office. Investigators reviewing files, interns analyzing bias data, citizens waiting to file complaints. The machine was far from perfect, but for once it wasn't rigged against the powerless. Still, the cost lingered. Her eyes carried the fatigue of someone who'd seen too much and slept too little. Every time she saw a uniform, she still felt that flicker of memory. The rain, the cuffs, the officer who called her criminal. Some scars just learned to live quietly. Across town, Trent Monroe's apartment overlooked the edge of the city. Industrial streets, warehouses, and the dull orange of sunrise cutting through fog. He worked nights now, security at a community youth center. Low pay, long hours, no authority. But it was work that didn't demand obedience through fear. The kids didn't know who he was, not at first. Eventually, one found his name online. piecing together the viral video, the hearing, the scandal. A boy named Devin asked him bluntly one night, "You really did that to her?" Trent didn't lie. "Yeah, I did." "So why they let you work here?" He paused. "Because she didn't stop me." "Didn't stop you?" Trent nodded slowly. "She could have ruined me completely. Instead, she made me face it." The boy squinted at him. "So you learned?" "Still learning," Trent said. The boy grinned. "Good, 'cause I don't take orders easy either." They both laughed, brief but real. A week later, Maya was invited to deliver a keynote at the state ethics conference. She hadn't planned to go, but something in her gut told her this chapter needed closing. The room was filled with officials, activists and camera, déjà vu, but different this time. "Accountability," she said into the microphone, "isn't about punishment. It's about proof. Proof that we can confront who we are and still choose better." Her speech wasn't fiery, just steady, a quiet assertion of endurance. When it ended, applause came slow, then steady. Afterward, she moved through the crowd, shaking hands, answering questions. Then a familiar voice stopped her. "Dr. Ellis." Trent stood at the edge of the room. Plain clothes, no badge, no spotlight. She blinked, surprised. "You shouldn't be here." He held up a guest pass. "I was invited. Community program partnership. We're mentoring at-risk teens now." A small, wry smile crossed her face. "Good," he hesitated. "Didn't expect you'd even talk to me." "I didn't expect you'd still be trying." He nodded. "Guess I finally figured out trying isn't enough." "Doing is." They stood a moment in quiet understanding. Then he said, "You changed more than this department, you know." She gave a short breath of irony. "Change is fragile. It breaks if people stop holding it." He looked down, thoughtful. "Then I'll keep holding my part." Her eyes softened, not with forgiveness, but recognition. "See that you do." He extended his hand again, just like before. This time, she didn't hesitate. As they shook hands, flashes from distant cameras lit the background, but neither of them turned toward the noise. For once, the story wasn't about exposure. It was about aftermath, what remains when the outrage fades and only character endures. That night, Maya drove home in silence. City lights blurred through the windshield like streaks of memory. At a red light, she saw a young black woman walking past a patrol car. 2 officers stood beside it, both nodding politely, stepping aside to let her pass. A small, cautious gesture, but one that made Maya's throat tighten, not victory, but movement. She smiled faintly and whispered to herself, "One step at a time." The light turned green. Across the city, Trent locked up the youth center. The last kid waved goodbye, skateboard clattering down the sidewalk. He turned off the lights but paused at the door. Looking at the faded mural across the street, painted hands of all colors raised together, chipped but visible. He thought of his old badge, now buried in a drawer, cold metal gone dull. He didn't need it anymore. The weight he carried wasn't the kind you wear. It's the kind you live with. He stepped outside into the cool night air. The street was quiet, just the hum of a distant siren, the smell of rain beginning again. He whispered to the empty road, "Keep walking, Doc." Then he smiled, faint but honest, and walked the other way.